Before the 1860s, there were only 25 letters in the English alphabet. Nobody knew why. Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, and I'm hoping that you are having a great day. In today's video, I wanted to sit back, relax, and have a chat with you guys about a card game. Not a trading card game, and not a collectible card game, no, just a good old normal card game. Specifically, this one, Epic PvP Fantasy, developed by Fun to 11 Games, designed by Ryan Miller and Luke Peterschmidt. This is an interesting take on a head-to-head card game because it is a class and race-based build-your-own-deck kind of game. You assemble the deck at the beginning of the game and run it against your opponents. And I've got to admit, when I first tried it out, something like 7 years ago now, I think, I didn't initially like it, but the more I gave it a try, and the more combinations I experienced, the more I grew to love it. Now, like with all the games I cover on this channel, I will not be getting super in-depth with the rules. I will just be covering the basics. Epic PvP is built on two pillars, two key mechanics that help the game kind of stand out. First is, as I mentioned previously, you build the deck before you begin the game, and this is neat because Epic PvP has races and classes. There are race decks to choose and class decks to choose, and you combine those together to make your deck, which is a pretty neat way to go about it. Each race has their own special abilities, each class has their own special abilities, and depending on how you combine them, you can have a very interesting and completely different starting deck from a previous gaming session. The other core mechanic for Epic PvP is its aggression system, which is analogous to Magic's mana system. Analogous. I have no idea how this word is pronounced. Anyway, at the start of your turn, you take the top two cards of your deck and you add them to your aggression pile. A lot of the cards in the game have an aggression cost, and you have to have at least that much aggression in the pile in order to play that card and attack your opponent. Also, the aggression pile is where you draw new cards from. After adding cards to the aggression pile, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, you declare how many you'd like to draw, and you add that many cards to your hand. You don't draw from the top of your deck at the start of your turn. Instead, the cards you replenish your hand with have to come from your aggression pile. So the more cards you want in your hand to play, the less aggression you have to play those cards with, which creates a really neat dynamic. You're constantly trying to balance out how many cards you want access to versus how many cards you can actually play, which is a really neat mechanic. Like with a lot of card games, the goal of the game is to reduce your opponent's life to 0. How much life you have is determined by your race, with, I think the lowest I've ever seen is 2. Damage is not dealt based on the total power of the cards that remain unblocked when you attack your opponent. Instead, it's how much damage you deal is determined by how many cards. So if one card hits an opponent, then you deal 1 damage to them. Easy enough to understand, I think. The only other thing I feel like I should mention is that who goes first is determined by your total speed. Different races and classes have different speed stats, and you combine them together to get your starting speed. For example, I think Catfolk has 5 speed and Barbarian has 5 speed. So you combine those together, and you get a character with 10 speed. Dwarf, meanwhile, I'm pretty sure has a speed of 0. So if you want to never go first, select Dwarf. Overall, Epic PvP makes for a very fun, replayable game because there's so many different combinations you can try when assembling your deck, and there's a lot of different interactions you can have with an opponent based almost entirely on what combinations you guys are using against one another. You'll find that some are really broken in some circumstances and that they're not that helpful in others, which is really neat. I like that a lot because it means that as a game, there's a lot of opportunity to play it in different ways in the future, which is always fun, especially if you're just looking to get something quick to whip out on board game night. Now, to wrap up this review, if you've never played Epic PvP and you have a chance to, I recommend you do. You might find yourself falling in love with it as I did over time. Overall, I would give this an 8 out of 10 as far as complete in-box card games go. It's very easy to pick up, really, really intuitive once you get the hang of the basic rules, and it has a lot of replay value, which is, again, always a bonus because, yeah, sure, you can play a card game or a board game that's pretty stagnant, but I like the ones that have a lot of opportunities to be radically different with each individual play session. And Epic PvP really does give an almost perfect kind of experience like that, where every single game can be radically different. And I really just like that a lot. So if that's what you're looking to try, go ahead and seek this game out. Maybe your local game store has it, maybe they don't, but it's not too expensive if I recall correctly. I've got at least 2 of these boxes lying around, so that's fun. Anyway, if you liked this video, if you enjoyed this little conversation, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a comment, leaving a like, sharing the video with a friend, all that jazz. But most importantly, your uncle's trying to lose weight and get healthy. So for every like this video gets, I'll be doing a push-up in the next one. And I'll see you kids then. The previous video got 41 likes, so we're doing this in 2 takes. That's 21. That's 41.